You say I make you nervous, a tragedy, I'm a beautiful disaster, a reckoning, you wonder how I got this way.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to my channel. I'm Sunshinery. Make sure to subscribe and like this video.
And tame, oh, some things never change, never change. You think.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. I hope you all are getting excited for the premiere of season 11 that's happening very, very soon. But we are here today to talk about Miss Little Rachel. Now, I thought for sure she was not going to be putting out an episode this week because Monday it wasn't there, Tuesday it wasn't there, and now today, Wednesday, it finally appeared. And it is titled, I'm Ready to Respond. So, we are ready to listen. Let's not waste any time. Make sure to subscribe to my channel and like this video, and let's get into it.
This is Rachel Savannah Leviss from Rachel Goes Rogue. I am so excited to be joining you guys on my second episode, and I'm feeling good after the release of our first episode. I've gotten a lot of feedback from you guys listening in, and it's been relatively positive so far. A lot of people are reaching out saying that their perception of me has changed a bit since listening and getting to know more information. And I just hope as this continues, you guys can discover things about yourself. I want this to be an overall positive podcast. But as we progress forward too, there are some serious topics that I feel like need attention. And I know one of the feedback marks was that I laugh a lot and smile a lot through talking. And so that is something that I have been aware of. It's definitely anxiety based. When I talk about things that make me feel a little bit uncomfortable, my default is to smile and laugh through it. So I understand that it could come across a way that I don't mean it to. I don't think that any of this is funny, and I don't enjoy recounting those painful memories that hurt a lot of people and hurt myself. So just trying to be real, and I'm sure as these podcasts come out episode by episode, I will get better at speaking and expressing my emotions and keeping it real with you guys.
Well, it's interesting to see that she realizes she has nervous tics, and that's what I really thought when I heard her laughing, though it can come across, like she said, as it's seeming a different way, and it definitely gave that vibe as well. I do know she will feel more comfortable the more she does this. Just being on YouTube myself, the more I go live, the more I do videos, the more I can feel more comfortable, and I realize certain things that I say and do, and I catch myself and I perfect it, and I think she will get there very much as well. What do you guys think? Let's hear what else she got to say, because I know she got a lot of remarks in the last episode. So let's go.
I'm here with my iHeart producers, and they'll be helping me go through different questions, things that you guys want answered. We're about to dive into the trailer of Vanderpump Rules Season 11. This came out a few weeks ago, and I figured we might as well watch it now, and I can talk about some of the thoughts, feelings, and emotions that come up for me.
So you just watched the trailer.
Yes.
I have some questions. In your opinion, why are Tom and Ariana still living together? And do you think it's for the show?
Oh, wow. Tom doesn't want to lose that house, and I think he's being stubborn with not letting Ariana buy him out. I think that's also a big reason why he didn't break up with her sooner, is because he wanted that house. And I also know that they grew up together, and the fact that they came from this small apartment that was a little run down, and when you turn the microwave on, the lights would go out, and just it was a small space. and they worked hard to make money and invest it into this big house. And I feel like there's areas of comfort there that they both felt comfortable in their relationship and comfortable in that house. And now that the relationship is broken up, I believe that Tom is having a really hard time letting go of that house.
And do you think it's for the show at all? Like how much they're going back and forth on social media about it, and that it's actually a storyline? Or do you think that it does really mean a lot to him?
I think it really does mean a lot to him. And I think he's being stubborn, like I said. And it's a power play on his part. But I can see where she's coming from. Like, dude, you cheated on me. Like, you should be the one to leave. So I see both points.
I can actually agree with Rachel for once. I do think she elaborated a little bit too much on people's emotions, that she really has no idea about how they feel just from seeing a trailer. But she did hit some key points that I did like they worked together and came from this little apartment up to having an investment as a house. I thought that was great. She should have cut it off there. There was no need to elaborate about how he turned the microwave on, the lights go off, or the AC goes off. That's their story. That's their memory. She wasn't around for that. So that's kind of interesting that she brought it up. But I do agree with Rachel. Tom is being stubborn and he's being a little manipulative, and it is a power move in his brain, I would say. But you also have to remember, this came out today, and we know today that there is a whole court order. A summons was served to Tom, and he is now being sued to sell the home because he's being a stubborn asshole. And I get it. I get you want to keep the house. But if you cannot buy her out, then there needs to be other options, and you can't just drag your feet and prolong it because you don't want to sell the house like a little toddler. You know what I mean? And I'm going to defend my girl Ariana. She has not been living there since she started Dancing with the Stars in September. And from September even till now, because now she's doing Chicago in New York on Broadway, which means she's not living there. So she hasn't really been living with Tom since last summer when they filmed all of this, and she is now moved on to bigger and better things for herself, and she's staying away because she knows it's a toxic environment. So what we are going to see on Vanderpump is, yes, the aftermath, literally, and having to probably see Tom be a little stubborn asshole, and where we got to this point that we are at today. And that is something you need to remember. She's doing this podcast this week. So she needs to also remember this is where they are today. She's not living there. She hasn't been living there. And yes, we see that in the trailer, but we know where she is today. We know what she's doing. And we know that he needs to come to some kind of a decision through the courts. Okay, I'm done ranting. Let's keep going.
Now, Ariana's dating again. So do you think Tom should be dating again anytime soon?
I really don't care what he does. He definitely didn't wait to date after I admitted myself to a trauma therapy center. So he was out there with different girls each week being photographed, and me finding out about it while I was in there and asking him about it. So I'm not surprised that he's dating now. I do feel like, and there have been instances where this hasn't applied to people, but I feel like for me personally, I recognize that I need to take some time to myself before I start dating again and really reflecting on who I am and growing as a person so that the next relationship I have can be stronger and healthier. And when I see people dating so quickly after a breakup, it's like a red flag goes off in my mind. But I mean, it's not my life, so who am I to judge?
Why are they asking her if it's too soon for either of them to start dating? Listen, we are all on our own paths, and we take different paths in different situations. What I might do might not be what Ariana does or what Rachel does. I can feel she's a bit hurt still how Tom moved on from her so quickly. But again, it's a life lesson. And if she's being honest with herself, did she actually think they would have a relationship after all that happened? Which I totally forgot to point this out last episode, and will be making a side-by-side short because I really think it needs to be seen. But literally, Ariana got him the way she lost him. And I'm not saying this to be mean to her because I wouldn't have expected this either from Tom. But Tom and Ariana all started from a kiss in the pool at the Golden Nugget. And the whole affair started from a kiss in the pool, but this time was at the house that Tom and Ariana both owned, and Ariana was sleeping upstairs. It's crazy! But yeah, I agree. She does need some time to reflect and better herself, and her journey isn't anyone else's journey. And her saying when she sees people dating so quickly after a breakup, it's like a red flag going off in her mind. But it's not her life, so who is she to judge? To me, that was passing judgment in kind of like a slick way because she's still hurt. She needs to realize her red flags are not going to be everyone else's red flags. She needs to realize people heal differently, people move on differently, and there is no right or wrong way. You learn as you go, and I think she really needs to be more focused on her own healing rather than other people's.
So in the trailer, James said to Sandoval, quote, "You still got so much growing up to do, Tom. It's sad to me." What do you think of your ex saying that to Sandoval?
I think it's so ironic that James is giving Sandoval advice in anything. Yeah, James is definitely a piece of work and not somebody who I believe has life all figured out. So it's just kind of funny to me, comical that he's giving Sandoval advice.
And in the trailer, Schwartz says to Tom, "I don't know what the future for me and Tom looks like." And what are your thoughts on that? And do you think that the Toms will ever break up?
I don't think the Toms will ever break up. I think that is the most codependent relationship that we've ever seen on Vanderpump Rules. I know that they went through this rough patch, and I think Schwartz is being influenced by outside people telling him that Tom isn't a good look and that he can't be friends with him because he made terrible decisions, and that reflects poorly on you as a friend. And so I think he was influenced by people to pull back, and I'm sure that was part of the storyline too. But I do know that, and maybe we'll go into this later, but when I was sending letters to Tom from inside the trauma therapy center, Tom told me to send letters to Schwartz because he would get the mail from Schwartz, and that way it would be like under wraps and nobody would need to know. And then there was a point where Tom said, "Oh, don't send letters to Schwartz anymore because he doesn't want to be friends with me at this point. Like, he's dumping me as a friend." And then he instructed me to send letters to his house. And I said, "Well, don't you think that's a little weird? Like, what if Ariana finds it?" And he was like, "No, my assistant will get it. Don't worry about that at all." And so I remember sending a letter out, and then a few days later I sent a postcard, which I saw it had freaking stupid lightning bolts in the way that it was like a storm cloud lightning bolt in Arizona. And I got a stamp from the bookstore, just a tiny little postcard stamp, and I thought it was cute. And I made a bad decision to send it to the house because I trusted that Tom would make sure that his assistant would get it. And of course, the day I sent it out, Ariana went on Watch What Happens Live and said that we were sending letters to each other and that she found the letter. So then, you know, that sucked because I was like, you know, this letter is already sent out and I can't take it back now. Like, Tom, I need you to check the mail like every single morning and make sure that you get that postcard before Ariana sees it. And he promised that he would, and he said his assistant was on it. And I don't think he really gave a fuck. I think maybe he wanted her to see it.
Listen, I don't think James has life figured out. I think he is in a better spot than he's ever been, and Allie is a really good fit for him, and I think he's matured a lot more. And I do think him going to Scandoval and saying, you know you have a lot of growing up to do, is still accurate. And it's a friend telling a friend, whether they're friends or not, he's being real with Tom. And Tom has a lot of growing up to do. I feel like she's just holding this judgment on James just because their relationship didn't go like she wanted it to. And unfortunately, it's not really her decision anymore. And he's moving on with his life like she needs to move on with her life and not hold these grudges against him. Is it me, or are they having her overanalyze this trailer very in depth? I can also agree with her that the Toms are the most codependent relationship on Vanderpump Rules, for sure. And in my opinion, I think Schwartz has a lot of issues in his personal life because of Scandoval. And I preferred him on Winter House without Scandoval and getting to see Schwartz for himself for once. I think Scandoval isn't a good look for Schwartz, though Schwartz has a lot of his own issues going on too, and I don't think it's a healthy friendship at all. And this whole letter sending thing, to me, it just is another way at that time where she was hoping that no one would find out that they were in contact with each other. And when it did come out that she was ashamed. She looked like a fool. And I can see being upset that he didn't give a fuck if Ariana saw the letters coming in or not. But again, at that time, it wasn't a secret that they were talking. Maybe the fact is she wanted it to be a secret and seem like they weren't talking. And he was like, why hide it? Everyone already knows. What do you guys think? Let me know down below.
Now, going back a little bit, you mentioned that Schwartz knew. So when did Schwartz find out about you and Scandoval? And did Scandoval tell you when he was going to tell Schwartz? Like, how did that conversation happen?
Did Sandoval tell me when he was going to tell Schwartz?
Mm-hmm.
No, because Schwartz already knew at that point.
So how long did he know?
Schwartz knew since the very beginning. I got a phone call from Tom the next morning after we hooked up for the first time. And my mind was racing. I was feeling so much guilt and shame about it. And I finally got a phone call from Scandoval, and he was at Schwartz's apartment when he called me. And that was like a safe space for him. And so Schwartz knew before we even had a conversation to talk about it and what the game plan was going to be. Because immediately I was going to film with Ariana and our group of girls that night. And I was like, like, I'm seeing Ariana later. I don't know what to do. He's like, well, just go along like everything's normal. And I was like, okay, so just so we're clear, we're not going to tell Ariana. And he was like, no, we're not. And I remember that scene that night. Ariana and I actually shared an Uber to that scene. And as we were pulling up, she was like, God, I hate this place. Every time we come here, someone always says something horrible, like, I slept with your boyfriend. And I was like, I drank a lot, and there's a lot of videos from that night of me just like being wild. Tom also sent a bottle of champagne to our table that he called in through the restaurant. And it was almost like this twisted way of celebrating and then reassuring me that, oh, this is all fine and dandy. Like, this is something to be excited about. And when the champagne came to the table, all of the girls were like, oh my gosh, Tom, that's so thoughtful, you know? And of course, Ariana, to her, is a gesture to her because that's her boyfriend.
So we know that you hooked up with Sandoval in Mexico, which is also when you kissed Schwartz. And this was at Sheena's wedding. So were you doing that to draw attention away from your relationship with Sandoval, or did you actually have feelings for Schwartz?
No. So there's a little bit of a backstory to this. When I first made that first move on Schwartz saying like, oh, should we just make out now? It was part of our inside joke that fans were convinced that Schwartz and I kissed at Coachella. And that was the rumor that was circulating that April prior to filming that season. And I had this little seed planted in my head that, oh, like that could be a fun storyline for season 10. And because we're both single. And so when I made that move, he turned it down and I was like, okay, that's that. Like, I'm not going to try again because it was stupid to begin with. And he clearly wasn't into it. Fast forward to Katie inviting me out to the girls' trip to Vegas. And she said, I came forward with that information because I knew she was going to find out eventually. She said that made me feel really uncomfortable. And she set a boundary saying, if you do anything with Schwartz, I'm not going to be able to have a friendship with you. And so the next scene, I'm filming in my apartment with Sheena, and I'm filling her in on being invited to this girls' trip and telling her that she's not invited. And I said, I came forward to Katie about me asking Schwartz if he wanted to make out. And I told her how she reacted. And I said, that door's closed. I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to kiss him. Like, it just doesn't make sense for me to do that. And I'm going to respect her boundaries. And the producers were like, oh, whoa, hold on. We are making a reality TV show after all. So don't say no so quickly. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to make another move first. So if that's something that he wants to do for a storyline, then he can come to me with that.
Now, I'll say this. People are acting surprised online by the statement that she makes here, saying that Schwartz knew all along, which, if everyone remembers, Schwartz said he knew about them hooking up that very first time, and he thought it was like a one-time kind of thing, like it was never going to happen again. And he also then said he knew about the actual affair after the hookup in the pool, months and months later. That is still the same timeline of events that she's saying and he said. Now, I don't see how Tom sending a bottle of champagne to the table was a way of celebrating it. Sorry about the airplane in the background. Or how it was a way of reassuring her. It was all fine and dandy, that this is something to be excited about. I don't see how she got that all from a bottle of champagne being sent and paid for. Like, I just don't get it. I think that was her way of maybe overthinking things, which I can understand. She was going through a lot. I don't know. We're not going to overthink things like she does. Now, when she's talking about kissing Schwartz, I don't know if that is something like all reality TV stars think of, or it was her way of thinking, but how do you think, this would be a great storyline since, like all the fans are convinced that we made out at Coachella? To me, that just shows that she is more calculated than we realize. And when people say she wanted to be on the show, she did things to get on the show, I believe it. And even the producers later coming to her and saying what they said, just to me, seems weird. And I feel like she had already discussed this with them and was like, oh my God, this would be a great storyline kind of thing. And she then turns this around on them now to make it seem like it was what they pushed her to do, though it was her thought first. She admits that. Come on now, people. I mean, she stalked James at his DJ set to meet him and hope that he would fall in love with her. It's been said before. Actually, Katie now has her own podcast, which I will be bringing to you all. I've listened to it. I love it. But I have a clip from Breaking the Rules Pod IG, which I will link them down below. But they posted this, and I really agree with Katie, and it fits kind of here. So I guess this is a little sneak peek for you all for what's to come.
Theme of accountability, but not actually taking it and blaming everyone outside yourself. I'd be remiss if I didn't also bring up the fact that Rachel's coming out with the podcast, and I'm not going to listen to it because I
would never give her my download.
My time is, I have too much respect for my time. I still maintain that she should just come back to the show. If this is ultimately where she was going to end up, and I don't think she ended up here by accident, I think this was probably always her plan. She should have just come back to the damn show and been accountable there and told her side of the story or whatever she wanted to do there. To be honest, whenever I keep reading things, it just seems like a lot of still wanting to position herself as a victim. Mm-hmm. I'm not really seeing that there's been a massive amount of growth in her quotes or like a lot of introspective, a lot of accountability being taken. I think just saying her darkest days or, her consequences of her actions, like, ma'am, when are you just going to be like, I royally fucked up, period, end of sentence? You're not blaming outside sources, trying to say you were manipulated, trying to say you weren't friends with this person, trying to say you didn't want to put yourself in front of them because it was going to hurt them. Ma'am, you actively made choices on a daily for months and months.
Okay, fast forward to the Cancun trip for Sheena's wedding. Obviously, Schwartz knew that Sandoval and I had hooked up. And I have a feeling that either producers got into Schwartz's ear saying, oh, you should make out with Raquel. He got some pressure somewhere to make out with me and put a move on me because they had this 2-top table set up with the camera lights and they instructed me to walk over there for a scene with Schwartz. And so it's definitely staged and definitely produced. And I also feel like Schwartz had the go-ahead with Sandoval to kiss me because I don't think he would do it without Sandoval being okay with it. So when we got to that 2-top table set up with the lights on us and we filmed that scene, and you don't see the whole thing because they cut it. But Schwartz is talking to me and he has his hands over his face like blah, 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 blah. He's mumbling. He's like, I can't make out anything that he's saying. I asked him to repeat himself 2 times. And after the 3rd time, I was like, okay, it's fine. Just forget about it. Like, don't worry. And he's like, no, I kind of want to make out with you. And I was like, wait, what? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, oh, okay. And so we went in for a kiss, obviously both of us knowing that I had a thing with Sandoval. And in that moment, it just felt so produced and like, okay, this is clearly a storyline. Clearly, we're playing a part right now. And as we kissed, the entire group was, I guess, watching, and then they cheered and started clapping. And so I was like, Schwartz, should we like go somewhere a little bit more private? Because I feel like everyone's looking at us right now. And he was like, yeah. And so we went to the second location where it wasn't all lit up, and we had the cameramen like get in this pool that they weren't prepared to go into to get the shot. And we were like kind of behind this fence, so the crowd couldn't see us. And we were sitting there talking about relationships and how he felt that Katie was a little bit controlling. She was putting limits on him of who he can and can't date. And I told him about my breakup and my relationship with James. And I said, it's been a blessing to have no contact with him. We were just talking about that. And then I was like, I kind of want to make out with you again, because I'm like, yeah, we're filming this show. Like, this is what the producers want. And so I went in for that kiss. And of course, here comes, like, there's this noise in the background, and I turn around and it's Sandoval army crawling over to us. And then he cracks open 2 beers and he's like, here you guys, here you go. And then he's like, see ya. And so we're like, okay, cheers. Like, so I know that he was in on it and definitely okay with it, especially because after that scene, we went to go party at this club that they had on the premises of this hotel called Desires. And we were celebrating. And as I was on my way over there, one of the producers came up to me and said, hey, so we were thinking about your birthday and we want to have your birthday trip. How do you feel about going glamping? And I was like, that's what I've been wanting. Like, that's what I asked for. So immediately I was rewarded and we were all celebrating. And it just felt like this high, like I did something right. And so, no, it wasn't initially a cover up to like cover up my relationship with Sandoval. It turned into that when we kept the secret and still played into this flirty role that Schwartz and I had together. I question whether or not Sandoval strategized that move so that it could be a cover up, but I do know that Schwartz was fully aware of the situation.
Again, Schwartz knew about the initial hookup. He also stated that Sandoval told him it was a one-time deal. So him going to Mexico and wanting to make out with Raquel, yes. They had people pushing them. Not just the producers, but their friends too. Like, Sheena was pushing it. When they first kissed in the pool at that table that she's describing, everyone saw and cheered. Because if you recall, Katie got upset because everyone was cheering for them. So Sandoval saw the initial kiss too. And I think, yeah, maybe it could have been a, like, plot thing to kind of distract from what was really going on, especially with Sandoval. I don't necessarily think it was that plotted out. And it was more of a manipulation tactic for Sandoval. Like, hey, Schwartz, you want to kiss Raquel kind of thing. Like, because he had thought, yeah, it was a one-time thing with him and Sandoval. And he still had that open door to do what he wanted with Rachel if there was something there. I feel like she's putting a lot of blame on the TV show. And for a long time, she was part of that. She was okay with everything that was done. And now that it's something that makes her look bad, she's not okay with it. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. I love getting to chat with you guys about this.
In that moment, if you were in love with Sandoval, then how could you want to kiss his best friend and then go back and kiss him again?
I wasn't interested in Schwartz like that at all. It was more of a, like, I like you as a friend and I know he's not interested in me that way. And I already like closed the door on exploring that. So it didn't feel like I was betraying anybody by kissing him. Well, besides Katie, of course. It just felt like I was playing into this part.
So it felt like a role.
It felt like a role.
I kind of feel like she wanted to explore it, and then after the kiss happened and everything, that she was just like, no thanks. Like, I now see, like, this isn't a thing between us. And now she is saying what she's saying, but I feel like she wanted to explore it at first. Okay, so this is where a commercial break is, and we're going to go into the next part now.
Obviously, it wasn't planned for Schwartz to be the cover-up the whole time. It kind of turned into that.
Mm-hmm.
So was Sandoval at all angry that it became a storyline between you guys? Or did he encourage that distraction and keep up with it, like cracking open the beers?
Yeah, Sandoval encouraged that. He encouraged those interactions between Schwartz and I. And I also remember like filming at Sir when Sandoval and Schwartz were there, and they were like, oh, come sit down. And I'm in my waitressing uniform. And I'm like, you could just see my face. I know it, because you know, a part of me is like super uncomfortable with like knowing the actual truth and knowing that like, oh, I'm just, you know, innocently sitting in the middle of both of the Toms. But in reality, it was like clearly all three of us knew what was going on. And we all three got close. We got closer together because Schwartz's apartment became a safe place for Sandoval and I to meet up. And I don't want people to necessarily go after Schwartz because I felt like Sandoval put him in a bad position where he didn't have a say. And I know that he tried to set boundaries with Sandoval and not having me there and really encouraging him to break up with Ariana and just come clean. But Sandoval didn't, and he didn't respect his boundaries. And he like reassured me that it was fine that I was there. So I think people suspected that Schwartz knew. And I don't see why it's a bigger deal that he did know, because Sandoval, because, okay, maybe I do, because it really breaks the fourth wall of we're playing a role here. We are partially acting on this show. And the main goal is to not break that fourth wall. And Sandoval, you know, I think he wanted to maintain that, but he was not happy with Schwartz when he said at the reunion that he found out in August. And that was part of the conversation that we had when he pulled me aside out of the trailer and the cameras went down. He was like, it's not cool that Schwartz came clean with his answer, or he didn't come fully clean, but he definitely didn't stick to the date that Sandoval wanted him to. And I think he was reinforcing that I would stick to that story to like keep me in his grasp, and so that I wouldn't go rogue and expose it all. And so it was definitely like a control tactic, and it seemed to have worked for the time being. Like at the reunion, there's a lot to process.
Of course, Sandoval encouraged it. Sandoval saw a way he could cover up what he did, and he went with it for sure. I also think he knew when it comes to competing with Schwartz that He, as we all know, is very overly confident, and he knew if he wanted Rachel, he could have her. I think with the reunion, a lot of people, including Schwartz, just had enough of all the lies. And he wanted to be himself, and he wanted to come clean, per se. But I also feel like if Tom was leading Rachel to believe one thing, he was definitely leading Schwartz to believe another thing too. Which I do think Schwartz learned about the affair portion way before he actually is saying. I also think he doesn't really remember when he learned of it, and he was being honest in his forthcoming when he said what he admitted during the reunion. And if Sandoval is mad at Schwartz for not going with the plan, then that's on Sandoval, because again, he is a controller. He controls all the people around him in his life, and I don't necessarily think it's a good thing at all. And he, in my opinion, is no victim in any of this. And sure, he's been playing it off pretty damn fucking well, but he is no victim. He manipulated a lot of people. He infuriates me. Like, I'm being honest with you guys. He infuriates me. What do you guys think? Let me know down below.
Can you explain how the fans' comments actually influence storyline and how you all reacted?
Yeah, it's very strange how the fans' comments will influence our storyline and how we go about filming, because I guess it's part of the producer's job to know what the fans want to see and what they're asking for. And then as a good cast member, who a lot of cast members will self-produce and be thinking about what storyline they're going to be involved in as the season comes up. The comments that the fans will put out there seems to influence, like, if there's like a little seed that they put out there, like, oh, so-and-so should date so-and-so, it seems to come into fruition. And that is kind of what happened with Peter. And I guess I'll go into this now. So the whole Peter date came about when I bought some flowers at Trader Joe's and I was flower arranging in my apartment. Actually, it was Sheena's apartment that I was subletting. But anyway, I was flower arranging and it was an Instagram live. And then I took a picture of the flowers by the window and I said, when the sun hits just right. And Peter Madrigal commented under that saying, they're perfect. And so fans commented under that saying, oh my God, Peter got Raquel flowers. Like, how romantic, how cute. Those guys would be so cute together. I want to see Peter and Raquel date. And so it became like, oh, haha, like a funny thing at first. And Peter asked me out and I was like, well, I haven't been on a real date since my breakup with James. And I feel like Peter is a trusted, safe person where I could get back into dating with Peter, maybe. And like, we could just go for drinks and like, it doesn't have to be anything more than that. And so Peter planned a date for us. He said, I'll pick you up at 5. And he picked me up and we got drinks. I must have had maybe 4 lemon drop martinis and nothing to eat for dinner. And I ended up crying to him about my heartbreak with James and just feeling confused and just like definitely not from a healed place. And he was actually very supportive and he came over to the booth that I was sitting at and like put his arm around me and he said, they're there, like it's going to be okay. And, you know, I was literally crying on his shoulder. And he was like, okay, I think it's time to take you back. And I was like, yeah, thanks. So we're driving back to the apartment. And I was like, Peter, can you please pull over? I feel sick. And he's like, are you serious? And I'm like, yeah, I'm serious. And so he pulled over and I threw up in the gutter. And I was like, oh my God, like how embarrassing. I'm so sorry. He's like, no, it's okay. It happens. And he dropped me off and I went upstairs safely, brushed my teeth, got ready for bed. And then the next week he texted me and he was like, that was a great date. I want to go out with you again. And I was like, that was a great date. I feel like I'm not in a good place to be dating right now based off of like how much I was drinking and how much I was crying. So I think it's best if we just stay friends. And so that's where we left it. But then as the new season started filming, and I didn't have the Miss California storyline that I wanted to have, the producers approached me saying, we want you to go on a date with Peter. And I said, no, I don't want to go on a date with Peter. I already went on a date with Peter and it ended up terribly. And I don't see anything going forward there. And they said, well, that happened off camera and people know about it. And we want to cover all things because it's reality. And so we are setting you up for a date with Peter. And, you know, you don't have to date him for long. You just have to go on this date. And I was like, I really don't want to. And I talked to other people about it and I said that I didn't want to. But then I also felt like I didn't really have a storyline for this season besides being single. And then, of course, like when you're single, you're supposed to date. So I was like, well, I feel a little bit obligated to go on this date. And so when I got there, I told them like, all right, I'm going on this date, but I'm going to like end it with him on this date. Like, I don't want to lead him on. And they said, no, you can't do that. You have to wait a week at least. And so just hang out, you know, like don't take it so seriously. I demanded that the date was during the daytime. I was like, we are not doing a nighttime date. We are not doing a dinner date, nothing like that. It has to be during the day. So at least they compromised with that. But of course, on this date, I was crying to him once again. And I knew that I didn't see a future with him, but I was taking direction from production to, you know, not quote unquote break up with him until later on. And so that's a long story.
Listen, I get production does push certain issues, certain things. I think knowing that they had previously went on a date and it was something that the fans saw, they commented on, kind of a thing, that they wanted to recapture that moment and have that storyline since it was already in the sense a storyline. People knew that they went out on a date and all of that, and they wanted to continue it with the cameras rolling. So I can understand production pushing that. I think Peter in general is just a great guy. He's a sweetheart. And I think in that sense, maybe she did lead him on more than she realized. And maybe he wasn't aware of certain things like she was aware of certain things. And I don't know. I just think that whole thing is her, again, trying to have like, this is what production does. We as fans know production pushes certain things. That is something we all know. So I don't necessarily think that is how production is. I do think they try hard though. I do.
So when production comes to you and says, you guys are going to go on a date, you need a storyline, does he know that this is a storyline? Like, does he play along, or is he going in blind, and does he take that personally that maybe he thought there was a future but there really isn't?
It's a good question. I think that's a question for him, but I also know that Peter has been a character that hasn't been in the main storyline for much of the time. He's always been in the outer circle, and he still gets an episodic rate. And his episodic rate is relatively high since he's been on the show since the very beginning. And so I wouldn't be surprised that he's seeing this as an opportunity to make his income and part of his storyline to stay relevant with the show. I don't know if he genuinely had like deep feelings, which is also weird to me because it should have been just like a manager server relationship, and anything but that is crossing a line, especially when I'm still working at SUR. And so yeah, I don't know if he like actually had feelings or if his motivation for doing that was a storyline. That's more of a question for him. But I do know I made a remark on Watch What Happens Live, and this was the night that Ariana found out and I got punched in the face. Moments before, Sheena and I were filming with Andy Cohen on Watch What Happens Live, and I made a comment about Peter being a starter pony, like, oh, he's a good starter pony to get back into the dating world. And I didn't mean it as a derogatory comment, but I think he interpreted it that way and was offended. And so I would like to take this time now to apologize to him for that. And yeah, it definitely is. It's a weird reality to live in as a person when things are so mixed up. You don't know if that person getting involved in your life is doing it for a storyline or if they are actually genuinely interested in telling you this information or befriending you or dating you. So it's very messy and complicated. And when you're on a TV show like this, season after season after season, your entire life revolves around what substance are you going to give to the cause to provide entertainment for people. And then your life doesn't really become yours anymore.
I don't see what Peter's episodic rate has anything to do with this. I think as a manager, he is friends with them, but he also has that distance too because he was their manager. I know Peter has talked about this before, about how he is glad in the sense that he isn't a main character, but he does still enjoy being able to do it with his friends. I don't think it was his way to stay relevant or have a storyline. She might think like that, but I know for sure others don't think like that. I also think as a manager and being on the show and being a manager, for as long as he has been, he has deserved everything he has gotten. And it's for sure no one's business what he should and shouldn't be making just because he isn't a main character. And her saying now that it should have been more of a professional relationship since he was the manager, come on now. This first date happened off camera, and you even just admitted you were interested to see and start dating again. So to me, this is her pushing a narrative so she doesn't look bad. But Peter does. And listen, I get business conduct, all of that. But sometimes things happen. And if those two people choose what they choose, knowing what could happen, that is on them. And there are plenty of people that I know that have met because they have worked together and they lead a happy long life together now. Love is love in that sense, and you cannot help who you fall in love with. And to me, that just came off as a bit of jealousy on her part also. She is still, I think, upset that they didn't give her what she wanted because she thought she deserved it, though she wasn't a part of the show as long as others have been a part of the show, and didn't necessarily earn that enhanced amount just because she decided to have an affair with her best friend's boyfriend. I also think it was a great thing to see her apologize to Peter about calling him the starter pony, all of that. I also think she should have stopped right after the "I'm sorry" and not continued to then make up, excuses to why it is what it is kind of a thing. I think there is a lot we as fans don't understand about reality TV, but I also think there is a lot of things she does that others don't do. She has come off as someone who has to plan everything. And like Lala has said, she's the type to practice what she is going to say to someone. And unfortunately, with reality TV, you can't always plan it. That's what then makes it not real, not reality. And I definitely see others just living their life and going with the flow as they film, and not like her, where she's planning storylines and all that. I really believe in the sense that she was trying way too hard, and she lost all control when she had no control anymore of what she was hiding and playing along with that kind of a thing. What do you guys think? Let me know below. We have a couple minutes left.
To kind of wrap up, the group seems to have forgiven Sandoval, and we see that in the trailer for the upcoming season. Do you think if you went back on this season, they would start to forgive you just how they forgave him, or do you think it would stay as it is now?
I absolutely do not think that they would forgive me if I went back to do this season. And I've heard a few interview bites from a few of the cast, like Katie and Lala, saying, oh, she should have just come back. It's not what she thought it was going to be. It seems to be that they were bummed that I wasn't going to come back because it was such a hot topic that it took away from opportunities to film about it and scenes that could have been made. And so I don't think that they would ever give me the time of day to open up and dive in deeper and be real and honest and authentic. And to an extent, you can't really be real and honest and authentic all the way when you can't break the fourth wall.
Oh man, I don't think that the group has forgiven Sandoval at all. I don't know what she's talking about. And I don't think that was what they were trying to push even in the trailer either. Like, I think they are all just trying to figure out how to go forward from this. They were friends, and now it's like they have that trust that they have is gone with each other. And how are they going to still work with that person? And also, some of them are just not wanting that hate that they have for him in their hearts anymore. It doesn't mean forgiveness is given to him at all, but they are just moving forward, not allowing their hate for him to control their lives. And like I said, they are just moving forward with how can they not have this toxic environment around, but have that working relationship at least. I think she would get the same kind of treatment that he is getting, and honestly, we'll never know. We'll never know since she didn't return. And we can sit here and speculate all we want, but again, people get to a point in their lives that they just can't have all that hate in their hearts, because then that hate starts to take control. And just because someone has no hate for a person does not mean that person is forgiven. It just means that person is aware of their hatred for that person, and they aren't going to let that hate control their whole lives, and they move on from it and they move forward in their life, which I think she needs to do the same as well. Now, I don't think that Katie and Lala are bummed that she didn't come back because, as she states, it took away from opportunities. But instead, it's more like Rachel is causing all this mess, and then she gets to hide in the sense where others don't. And she got to spin it whatever way she wants now and have whatever narrative she wants to push, where others can't confront her and be like, girl, that's not what happened at all, or what the fuck are you talking about? I think that Katie, like she said, it's more of, if you have this story that you want to tell, why didn't she just come back then to tell her side like everyone else has done after something crazy or terrible has happened to them? I think she understands, because she's lived through it, she's had to come back and face her demons and face all of that. And I just think that Rachel is just trying to like skew what really actually happened now that she's not a part of the show. And if she really wanted nothing to do with any of them anymore, there is no need to rehash this over and over and over again. And then like overanalyze what is happening in their lives and then assume it has anything to do with her, when really nothing this season is because of her. Yes, the whole friendships being divided, things like that, yeah, that was because of her. But I don't think that this season has anything to do with her. What do you all think of this week's episode? Is it getting worse? Are you understanding her more? Are you just not getting why she's just dwelling on certain things like I am? Let me know in the comments and we can all chat about it. I love getting to chat with you guys, and I cannot wait to hear what you all have to think about this. I hope you all have a wonderful night, and I will be talking to you all again soon. Bye, everyone.
Think I would look pretty on your arm once you cover up my bruises and battle scars, but it always ends the same. Can't bear the things I've had to face. Got you crying on your knees in pain. Oh, some things never change, never change. Oh.